This past weekend saw one of the closest shows of the 2025 bodybuilding season, that being the Tampa Pro. At this point in the season, all the high-profile names are already Olympia qualified. However, this show, while the crop of guys were perhaps on a lower level, they were all on a similar level. So the level of competition was actually quite high. And there is a little debate going around on this show, so I'm here to bring you my analysis. In this video, I'm going to go through each shot for the top 4 call-out, which was made up of Joseph Palacios, Jordan Hutchinson, Quentin Uriah, and John Jewett. I do have a lot to say about the show, but I won't be able to get to all of it in this video because we're just looking at the first call out today. So tomorrow, be sure to check out my full Tampa Pro recap with Marcus Guerrero. Anyway, with all that out of the way, let's go ahead and jump into today's video. Remember, if you guys like these types of videos, be sure to hit the like button and subscribe for more. And as you can see, I'm bringing back the face cam today. We're also going to keep it pretty light and tight on this one. I'm already a day behind. I'm trying to get this out as soon as possible. So no script, but a few notes. And I still will be using the similar scorecard I use when I do these types of comparisons. I'm going to rank each guy in each pose 1 to 4. So at the end, the lowest score will win. Anyway, let's go ahead and start with our first pose, the front double biceps. And I think it's pretty obvious who takes this first shot. I mean, it's just Quentin. He is just superior structurally, genetically, whatever you want to say. Even though he doesn't even necessarily have the best of anything in a body part, maybe legs in this shot, I guess you could say, but what he does have the best of is the waistline and just the overall structure. And that's pretty much all he needs. The other guys in this lineup are all cut from the same bodybuilding cloth. You know, they're shorter but denser and more muscular, and that's going to help in other shots. But for this one, Quint's tall and imposing structure pretty much seals the deal in this lineup. Now, believe it or not, I'm actually putting John Jewett in second. I think if you look closely, he actually has the best arms. The other two guys, I guess even Quentin for that matter, have these really soft, doughy looking arms. John actually has some good separation in his biceps and good hardness as well. He also has very good legs, and to be honest, his shape is the second best next to Quentin's. When he elongates his torso, he actually has a very nice taper going on. And that leaves Joseph and Jordan, and I guess for this one, I'll just go with Jordan. Really, the only reason is because the waist is a little bit better in this shot and the abs a bit more defined. But for all intents and purposes, they're very similar, but I will give Jordan the edge just for a little bit more detail in the midsection. Now, you can call me crazy, Quint's structure did help a lot in the first pose, and usually it would translate to the second front pose as well, but to be honest, I have John Jewett here. Again, when he elongates his torso, the waist actually looks pretty small, and he has a good taper, and he actually probably has the best lats here, at least from the front. And he's very good in the legs, and that's probably Quentin's highlight, so if John can match him on that, which he is, then he can probably and should be winning on what he does upstairs. I will keep Quentin in second though, just because I don't like what's going on the left side of the screen, but to be honest, I don't really like Quentin's front lat spread that much. I think the arms and delts are kind of flat in this shot, the chest is really flat as well, and the upper body conditioning does not at all match the lower body conditioning. Yeah, he has that great structure, the small waist, and the great lats, and that pretty much is all he needs in this lineup for the other two guys, but I don't know, I think we just kind of expect him to like steamroll these front shots. I don't think that's necessarily the case. And with that said, I think John is a good mix of these aesthetic elements that Quentin has, at least enough of those, and the bodybuilding elements. He has better lats, better thickness through the arms, delts, and chest, and great legs. And then after that, Joseph and Jordan are again very similar. The only reason I didn't put Quint below them is because I think they're just a little bit too squashed. I think their midsections are a bit too wide to win this pose as well. But for this one, I'm actually going to switch it up. Jordan got ahead in the last shot, but this one I'm actually going to put Joe ahead in this one. And it really just is because the lats are a bit better, and he has that worse angle, so that's something to consider as well. They still look better even though he's off to the side, and he has more thickness to the arms, delts, and chest. Next, we have our first side pose, which is actually pretty contentious, except for first place, which is going to be taken by Joe this time around. All of these guys, besides Joe, have pretty weak chests by comparison. Joe, on the other hand, has a big, broad, big man's chest, I guess you could say. He's definitely the thickest and densest through the torso, and then the side leg is also very good. It's kind of hard to say who is the best in the side leg, but it's either him or Jordan, I would say. But John is very close behind those two. And then Quentin actually has a lot of lines too, but he needs a little bit more filling out. Now, with Joseph out of the way, we are going to take a look at the top two of the show, Jordan and Quint, because at finals, they did have a top two call out together. So if I am feeling conflicted in a post like I am here, we're going to take a look at their finals versions to break a tie or at least make a more solid conclusion. But first, before we go there, I'm going to go ahead and drop John off in 4th place. He's the smallest overall here, just as a human. He's just the shortest and smallest guy, but also he has the weakest chest, so I guess this makes sense. But 4th place in this pose is not that bad. Again, all of them are fairly even. But here we have the finals, and I will talk about this later, but Jordan apparently, on the scorecard at least, got a lot better at finals. He got straight first, while Quentin got straight seconds at finals, and at prejudging it was just a 1-point difference, which is odd, but we'll talk more about that later. I mean, here I'm still pretty conflicted. Quint has the superior structure, you know, he's taller, he's wider, but Jordan looks to be denser, his side leg is bigger, he still has very good detail on the side leg. Quentin has good lines too, and then the pecs, neither of them are the best. It's kind of a toss-up, and then in the arm, Quentin is fuller, but Jordan has the better separation between arm and delt. So overall, I think you can really make a coin flip here, but I'll go with Jordan. Really, he's just more bodybuilding-esque, but I can definitely see why Quentin would win this one too. Next, we have the rear double, and it's very cut and dry for 1st and 4th. Joseph is just crazy. If I'm not mistaken, this was the best back double in the show. What's really crazy is that even though he has the lats contracted because he's hitting the post, they're still just hanging off his back. Very crazy thickness, and the upper back has a lot of great detail as well. I'd say he has the best lower body as well, but it's very close with Jordan. Those guys have peeled hams and shredded glutes. As I said, it's cut and dry for 1st and 4th, and Joseph sticks out like a sore thumb, but in this case, it's a good thing. But Quint also sticks out like a sore thumb, and it's just because of his complete lack of density. And he has the same lower and upper body disparity in the condition going on that he had in the front, here in the back pose as well. He has lines in the glutes and the hams are there. I just wish the adductors were a bit more filled in, but this is a great lower body. But then upstairs, it's just he lacks a lot of this depth, and the condition isn't that good either, even compared to himself. That means he's in a distant 4th, so even though I'm putting Jordan in 3rd, there is a massive gap between 3rd and 4th in this shot. Jordan, again, probably has the 2nd best lower body, if not the best, again very close with Joseph, but his back still needs a lot more density and thickness. As you can tell, the disparity between the lower backs of Joseph and Jordan, there's quite a gap there. Jordan is still more dense and thick than Quentin, but we'll take a second look at that here in just a second. Ahead of him though, I am going to put John Jewett. I think his back is just overall more rugged looking, and yeah, his lower body isn't better, but it's still very good, very comparable to the other 3 compared to Quentin. And I just wanted to take a closer look at the top 2 here just to show that big disparity even between Jordan and Quint, which got 3rd and 4th in this pose. Now, I was a little concerned with putting John in 2nd over Jordan, but this does cement that thought for me. Great lower body, and it would be better than John's, but with an up-close look in the back, I don't think Jordan has enough thickness to compete with John. But with that said, Jordan's back is not the best by any means, but look at how much he is beating Quentin by. Quentin's back is just flat, it's underdone, it's not that conditioned at all, and again, this isn't just even compared to Jordan, it's compared to himself. The lower body condition is so far ahead of what's going on upstairs, it's a little jarring. And I'm not trying to pick on Quentin necessarily, but I am showing a big disparity. Like, even in Quentin's best pose so far, which was the front double, Jordan could hold up a lot better there than what Quint can do here. Next, we have the rear lat spread, and we're going to get a little bit of a switch up here. I thought about putting an up-close pick here again from finals between Jordan and Quint, but I think we get the point. But at finals, Jordan was even better. I did take a look at that pick earlier, but I'd still put him ahead of Quint just for the thickness in the erectors and the overall condition and size of the lower body as well. I would still say this was a better Quint pose, though. I think he can join the pack a lot easier, but he still is a little soft looking, again, compared to his own lower body. But he has a big and wide structure, and that's very important for this pose. It's the main thing we're looking at, that being width, so he does get a lot better here compared to his last shot. I'd still put him in last though. All of these guys are just a lot more rugged than him, a lot more developed. But in between Jordan and Quint, I'm actually going to put Joseph. I think the execution is the only thing that really holds him back. We will take a look at his video at the end, so maybe this wasn't him fully opening up, but just here in this pick, while his lats insert very low and look very good, the execution still looks half-assed, so I'm just going to put him in between Jordan and Quint. And that puts John Jewett in first with the best pose top to bottom. Like Quint, I think this is a better pose for him than the rear double. Now, the lower body is already solid. We already talked about it in the last pose. We don't really need to go over it again. The problem for John in the rear rear double though is that the detail's not so etched in. But here the most important thing is the width and the taper. Now you still get a lot of thickness from John through the mid back and even through the outer back. You definitely get some good upper back detail here as well, but overall the back just looks very dense. He's probably the densest up here in this shot, and the back is very wide, the lats are fully extended, and he has a very good taper. Again, just the best overall pose top to bottom. Next in the side tricep, we have another clear-cut shot for first and fourth. John is taking a pretty clear fourth on this one because the midsection just looks pretty bad. I mean, to be honest, just very washed out, no ab detail whatsoever, and the tricep is very skinny. He's not that streamlined either, and he's also the smallest up here, so he really doesn't have too much going for him here. But on the other hand, Joseph has pretty much everything going for him. He's very locked in the midsection. It's not the most detailed up here, but the stomach is glued to the spine. The pecs are very full, very thick. The side leg for this side pose is probably the best. He looks to have the most cuts and is very large, the biggest up here. And overall, his arm is the best. And I do mean overall. I think the tricep on Quint is just a little bit better, but overall, forearm, bicep, delt, and tricep, the arm goes to Joseph. And next we have another close call between the top two. Now my bodybuilding instincts on this one are telling me to go with Jordan. Bigger side legs, still good cuts, and overall just thicker and denser like it was in the side chest. But he does have that issue of a little bit of stomach protrusion at the very minimum. Quint is obviously better in the midsection. I think that kind of goes without saying. Very tight waist, very good abs. I would say at a glance, Jordan wins the bulk of the pose just because he's bulkier, and that's important because we're looking at thickness from the side, but Quint wins the highlights. He's more streamlined, we already talked about the waist, and then he has the slightly better tricep, those good pecs, and overall cuts the better hourglass shape. So overall, I think it's 50-50. They're very different, but since we also had a 50-50 in the side chest and I gave it to Jordan, I'm actually going to flip it here and give this one to Quint. I can go either way in both, so this is a good way of getting both opinions on each of these side shots. And next we have the abs and thighs, which is a pretty poor pose for everyone excluding Quint. So with that said, let's go from the bottom up, starting once again with John Jewett. The legs are fine, but man, the midsection is just not good, and I don't really think I need to say anything further. But then in third, we kind of have a similar issue with Jordan. In his recent updates before this show, I noticed the midsection grew, and it definitely did on stage as well. So you get a little bit of stomach rounding, but also the abs are very shallow. This is why Joseph barely gets ahead of Jordan, simply because of the slightly better abs, the more symmetrical abs. And both guys have good quads. And that leaves Quentin in first. I think we could have guessed that, but to be honest, I don't think this is the commanding lead everyone might think it is. I mean, in this lineup, sure, he's taking a fairly easy victory, but overall, I think the shot could be better. The legs are pretty good, I like the cuts to them, and the taper and waistline are the highlights of the pose for sure, but the actual abs themselves I wish were deeper. All in all though, like I said, it doesn't take a whole lot to be first in this lineup for this shot. And finally, we have the most muscular, and we're not ending on a bang, more like a whimper. I'm not a big fan of any of these shots, but right away my eyes go to Joseph. Throughout this entire comparison, he's been the biggest overall, at least the most muscular, I guess I should say. He's been very conditioned as well, and overall probably brings the most freak factor, which is pretty good for this pose. Obviously, it's the most muscular, so he's going to take first in this shot. He does have the best of a lot of body parts, pretty much the best in everything except maybe the legs, but that's debatable because his legs are very good. But he has the best abs in this shot, the best delts, the best arms, and the best chest. But on the flip side of that, John has the worst of a lot of things. Again, the worst midsection, a very flat chest, the arms and delts aren't that good either. The legs are the only good thing, but you get good legs from all the other guys as well. And on top of that, in the most muscular shot, he is the smallest guy overall, and that certainly doesn't help his case, so he's once again ending up in fourth. Now, I'm going to take a closer look at these two. I was pretty set even in the full top 4 call out, but I want to highlight a point I wanted to make. I do have Jordan winning this pose. Is it a big win? No, but I am kind of firm on it. I guess you can say that. Legs to legs, I would probably have Quint, but Jordan is very good. But the problem for Quint is that the upper just doesn't match the lower, and to me that is once again very jarring. And yeah, his muscle looks full and round, but almost too full and round. He kind of has this Derek Lunsford problem. The detail in the outer arm and the delt tie-in just isn't that crisp. He doesn't have a single striation in the chest. Even the midsection is just kind of meh. Jordan, on the other hand, even though he's smaller in some of these areas, he's just more conditioned, so I prefer him. Like in the abs, he has the sharper midsection and he's covering up that lower stomach with this variation, so I prefer him. In the chest, he takes the biggest win of the comparison. He actually has a detail. And then in the arms and delts, I get it, he's not as big, but he's a lot harder harder and a lot more conditioned than Quint. Quint is big and wide overall and that helps, but Jordan is filling out his frame better pound for pound. So again, it is a narrow win, but I just find Quint to be too inflated, maybe literally. And now it's time to look over the final scorecard. Again, this video was a little loose, but I still kept a tally of where I had everyone in each pose based on my initial thoughts. So here's the ranking. In fourth with 22 points and 2 poses won was John Jewett. Then in third, technically at least, was Jordan, but he tied with Quint in points, so the tiebreaker between the two was the amount of poses won, and Quint won 2 while Jordan didn't win a single one. And that means in first place was actually Joseph Palacios with 4 points won and only scoring 16 points. So there's a lot to unpack here, but first let's trim some of the fat. I love John Jewett, but both me and the judges had him in fourth, so he won't be joining the latter part of this concluding section. He's pretty complete and he showed up in good condition, but he has 1 or 2 really big issues that held him back. The biggest one being the midsection and a lot of poses. Anyway, let's talk about our official top 2, who were Quentin and Jordan in real life, but on my scorecard they were only second and third. And I don't even have an excuse for this, I agree, sort of. Basically, I can see this top 3 going most ways, except I'd always have either Jordan and or Joseph ahead. Quentin was the odd man out here. He had some really great things going for him like the structure, and that lends itself to a couple of good shots like the front double, but he's also the odd man out for bad reasons as well. He was the least muscular pound for pound, the condition in the upper body was not up to par with the rest of the group, and he had some weaknesses, mainly in the back and the overall lack of density. I get that he has good shape and that's why everyone loves him, but that isn't everything. So in my mind, he could beat either of these guys, but not at the same time because I want the winner of a bodybuilding show to encompass as many aspects of bodybuilding as possible. Its shape, muscularity, condition, poses, and some other small things. Quentin is great in shape, but he fell way too far behind in the more traditional bodybuilding things like mass and condition. Personally, I would have had him behind both Jordan and Joseph most of the time because those guys, while lacking a little in the shape department, had a big leg up in terms of density, muscularity, and condition. And I think that's pretty much ultimately why Jordan did win the show. Between him and Quentin, Jordan is just the better overall package. He has more even showings across shape, condition, and muscularity. It was close in the prejudging, which I do kind of agree with, but then at finals I do think Jordan got better, and that's what they had in the scorecard, and I do agree. I could have Quentin as high as second, but again, never first. But more often than not, I just put him behind both of the other 2 guys. Now let's address the other elephant in the room, Joseph being in first in my scorecard. Again, I don't have an excuse, that's just my opinion. First off, there is no bias here. I didn't even know who this guy was on Friday. He wasn't even in my top 10, but wow did he impress me this weekend. Now I have no idea who this dude is, and I don't know if he'll ever look like this again, so I'm not even a fan per se. But in this show, I had him as my winner. Let's not forget that this was an open bodybuilding show, and that's why I have him winning. He had the best mass and conditioning in the top 4 by far. However, I know a lot of you will be pointing the waist out. Well, to be honest, I thought it was a little bit of an issue too, but then I watched his individual posing video from Gilco Productions, and after seeing it in motion, while it is a little wide, I don't think it's a major issue. I really don't think it was that much worse than Jordan's, which did get a little bigger this past year, and he still ended up winning the show. And even if it is a little worse than Jordan's, Joseph beat him in terms of muscle and condition and won the majority of poses over him. After watching these guys' videos, I'd give Joseph the front lat spread, side chest, side try, rear lat spread, abs and thighs, most muscular, and definitely the rear double. It was the best in the show after all. And even if Jordan can take a win here or there, more of Joseph's wins are going to be more convincing. So overall, if Jordan can win this show because of him having the better bodybuilding aspects over Quint, then it stands to reason that Joseph could have won over Jordan too. Is Jordan still the better package because of his slightly better shape? With Joseph's wins in muscle and condition, his average would probably be just as high as Jordan's. So this just goes back to what I said earlier, and it's my overall thoughts on this show. I don't think anyone was robbed at all. These guys were all very competitive with each other. I simply just disagree, but only slightly. Joseph or Jordan could have won the show, and I wouldn't have complained, and me personally, I would have had Quentin no higher than second, more often third. But for that top placing, if you wanted my personal opinion, I would have been putting Joseph first on my scorecard had I been on that judging panel this past weekend. Well, that's going to do it for today's video. What did you guys think of this weekend's Tampa Pro, and who did you have winning? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. And if you guys like this video, be sure to hit the like button and subscribe for more. And if you guys want to get your hands on some high quality supplements while supporting my channel even further, head over to Arms Race Nutrition. Then at checkout, use my code Project10 to get 10% off your entire order. That's code Project10 on armsracenutrition.com. And finally, with all that said, I want to thank you guys for watching, and I will see you all in the next video.
gotta get in Lexi, yeah.